We are back for just a few more minutes, and we're going to the Ohio and Indiana Bar Association to ask us to give these addresses of the attorneys on the show. So here you have information for our guest today, John Saxton, and then the information for Don Moore and Dan Moore. You can get all of this, of course, by going to fox19.com and clicking on Moore Law. Of course, Dan Moore not here with us today.
I know, goofing off again.
It sounds like he deserves it, though. He had a rough week, a long week.
Yeah, he did, and they're down at a family farm down in South Georgia with the kids and everything. They're having a blast.
They picked a great time to get to the 75-degree Georgia weather.
It's a lot nicer there than it is here.
Right. All right, well, let's go back to the phones now. Sharon in Hamilton. Sharon, you have a question after a fall?
Yes. I stay in a handicap apartment, and I have asthma real bad, and they took my carpet up and put this floor down, and now the floor is coming up, and I've been asking them to come fix it for about 2 or 3 years now, and now I have a broken leg that I have to pay money for because they wouldn't come and fix my floor. What do I do?
What would you suggest she do?
Well, if she is renting an apartment, then the landlord has a duty in Ohio to present a fit and habitable premises for her to live in. So that would seem to be step one. If she's there, they have that obligation to be providing that. If they're not, then the landlord potentially has responsibility. Now, it seems like it's a more specific issue here with something that has caused this fall. And then, as we've talked about with previous callers, you look at what caused the fall. Is it something the landlord knew about? And if so, then he or she should have addressed that. And if didn't, then the landlord, I would think, would face some responsibility for this.
How hard is that to fight, though? I mean, I could just see somebody just not returning your calls. You know, you're calling the landlord and you feel like it's their fault. And how do you go about actually, whether it's bringing a lawsuit or filing a claim?
Well, there's a couple ways. In Hamilton County, by example, you could escrow your rent, which means you'd pay your rent into the court and say, I have a dispute, I'm not going to pay my rent to the landlord. That will get the landlord's attention. Or talk to a lawyer and potentially make a claim.
Okay.
One of the things about the rent escrow, though, that's a little bit tricky, that you can do that if they're breaching their agreement and you want them to fix something in the apartment. Don't know that the clerk's office or the court ultimately will support setting aside of rent for a personal injury case. And typically they're going to say, you know, inside the apartment, that's your problem. We maintain the common areas. Now, as John very correctly said, there's a special law that has to do with landlord, tenant, and habitable condition. And if it's an inhabitable condition, then you may get into other issues of liability. This has got some complication to it, Sharon, and I think it's going to be best that you get help with it. This is, especially when you've got something as serious as a broken leg, you need to get somebody to evaluate it and see whether it's a case.
Okay. All right, let's check in now with Carrie in Bethel. Carrie, you had a question about statute of limitations.
Yes. I was in an accident December the 6th, 2011. I was taken to the hospital after the accident and diagnosed with severe whiplash and a ruptured eardrum. At that time, I had been being doctored for that on and off this whole time. Last year, they did an MRI finally to determine that I had herniated discs in my neck and pinched nerve, then in pain like down my arm and stuff. Now they determined I am getting ready to have surgery this week or next week on my neck to relieve that nerve pressure. I've never talked to an attorney. The insurance people from the woman's insurance who rear-ended me contacted me. I never talked to them. They sent me out several letters wanting me to sign medical release forms and things. I never responded to any of that. I haven't basically talked to anybody or done anything about it. Is there a statute of limitations?
Yeah, sure is.
Would I still have a claim? Is it too late? What can I do?
Okay, what should she do?
We'll let John answer the statute of limitations question first.
Well, how long ago did she say this was?
She said it was
December of
December of
2011.
11. Okay, you've got 2 years generally in Ohio. You have 2 years to bring a claim or file a lawsuit. Now, that's a hard and fast deadline. So the fact that you've got issues that crop up later, you still have to go back to the date of the alleged negligent act or alleged problem. So that takes us 2 years from that date.
Okay, and we just have about a minute left. We want to answer her question here.
Okay, so Carrie, the deal is you need to get help, just as you said. We talked earlier, there's lots of lawyers around who handle personal injury cases. They're going to do it on a contingency fee. You call them, it's not going to cost you a nickel to talk to them over the telephone and figure out whether they think you've got a case. You better do it pretty quick because December is going to be your deadline. You don't get it done by December. If you don't either settle or sue by the 2-year date, assuming it's an Ohio rec, you don't have a case anymore.
What about her not responding to the attorneys, though? I mean, that seems to me there need to be some give and take.
Well, what she's got to do immediately is get somebody engaged on her side.
Right.
The insurance company's got somebody on their side, and if they're just blowing her off, she is going to have to get somebody on her side.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Evan.
All right. And next week we will be talking about kids in trouble. And then on April 8th, what happens if you're hurt on the job. And on April 15th, airplane mishaps. So that's all the time we have for today. And we'll see you next Monday on More Law.
Thanks for being here, John.
You're welcome.